sound. There's that sound going around the globe right now. The four corners of the earth spread around. I can hear it. Can you hear it right now? Put your hand right to your ear and listen closely, because you're going to be hearing howls from the wolf pack. Come on now! Because it's Paleocrat Diaries. And I'm your boy, your host, the OG, the one and only, Jeremiah Bannister. Super pumped. That is loud. You know, I get distracted by that music because it's it's perfecto mundo. Kind of like you. Kind of like you. I love you. You don't even know how much I love you. I was up late last night. Why? Because Lucian got sick. Little Louie, having a great day. You wouldn't have known. The little boy was not feeling too well. He's literally just sunshine all day long. And then nighttime came. And when nighttime came, they put away the games. They shut everything down, did some prayers, and then went upstairs. He tucked into bed, nice and neat. Everything was cool and cozy. Totally awesome, until all of a sudden, his little tummy started hurting. And then, he just puked all over the place. So what happened? Your boy stayed awake. And why? Because I love my wife. And because my wife, you know, she had a headache. She had a headache yesterday. She wasn't feeling too great. And I said, look, you got to do the manly thing. You've got to do what Catholic gentlemen would do. And in that situation, you take the child, put him in the bath, and wash him up. Take those clothes off, little buddy. We're going to wash that hair right now, little bro. That's what we did. Took care of him, stayed up, made the best of it, though. I was over in the Wolfpack chat. If you're not over in the Wolfpack chat yet, you're a complete loon toon. You're a loon toon. If you're not in the Wolfpack chat, you're a loon toon. It's just the way it is. In fact, if you look it up in a dictionary and you look up loon toon, you're going to find a picture probably of yourself, at least if you're not following us yet. And if so, it's an older edition and they'll update it. Trust me. That's how it works. All right. Today, Monday, November 29th, Saint Saturninus. If I'm pronouncing it properly, am I pronouncing that right? Am I pronouncing that right? I don't know. I'm hoping so. Okay, I'm hoping so, because, you know, you don't want to, you want to do your best doing pronunciations of names, especially, by the way, if they happen to be saints. I hope you have been having a blessed first week here so far. I mean, we're just starting, right? But your nativity fast here for the season of Advent. So, you know, I always look forward to this. You know, it's one of those things, it's like Lent. I know that, you know, it's penitential, but it's something that we can look forward to. We know it's coming. We know it's coming, and we know it's redemptive because we know the end of the story, don't we? We know the end of the story. And it's one of the reasons we're so pumped up about life in general, because we know the end of that story too, don't we? And so when we talk about difficult stuff, which we will do today, we're going to do that. When we talk about difficult things, we can be optimistic about that. We don't need to be the doomer gloomer types, right? We're glad cats here. We're not the doomer gloomers. It's not what we are. We're not the bad cats. We're not the sad cats. We're not the mad cats. We are the glad cats, and we're not doomer gloomer. We look ahead to a future where we have a mission and a role to play in this world, that we are to restore all things, as Pope St. Pius X talked about, restoring all things back unto Christ the King. That is what we do. We are those hands and feet in this world, and we got to be on our knees. We got to do a lot of prayer. And it's one of the reasons, honest to goodness, it's one of the reasons why you really should be at the Wolfpack chat. I'm not even joking. I'm not joking about this. I know some people are like, he talks about this every time. Yes, I do. Yes, I do, because it's awesome. Anybody in that comment section right now, anybody in that comment section, they can tell you it is totally awesome. It is totally awesome. A billion times better than my Thanksgiving Day, because I was sick. I was brutally sick. That's why I didn't do any show Friday. I wouldn't have anyway. I was out of town. But boy, oh boy, man, I was not feeling good. Had a fever for a brief minute, for a couple hours. I had a fever. I was so tired. I think I slept like 19 hours that day. I mean, it was bad. Just slept, and then it just kind of faded. And my mom had the same thing. It faded. I mean, so it's kind of going around all kinds of crazy. But the Wolfpack chat, right, that's going around kind of crazy 24/7, son. I mean, it really is. But here's the thing. Here's the thing, is that we pray there. right? There's a guy, Andrew Stahl. We joked about him last week. We said, we didn't joke, we were being serious. We're like, track that guy down. He might be like the Paleocrat freak and geek of the year. This guy's like hardcore for the show. He's one of the first people always commenting, a really great guy. But he wasn't part of the wolf pack. And I was like, look, we got to get him in. We've got to get this cat in here like right now. Well, shortly after he came in, it was what, not even 24 hours or 48 hours later, he ends up finding out that his stepdad came down with COVID and it was bad enough that he was hospitalized. And so what we did, we said, look, we've got to pray for this guy because he was going to leave immediately. He had his wife and the 5 kids back in Ohio. He was hopping on a plane to go support his mom. And he said he could only keep praying because he said, it was sad. It was a sad thing to leave on the jet plane, right? He's got John Denver on the heart, for real. I mean, he's like experiencing this. He doesn't want to leave them, but he does because he knows something inside him deep is saying, honor your mother and your father. And he was hearkening back to an episode that we had just done, one that he said was particularly impacting about honor your mother and your father, and not just your biological parents, but also the church as a whole. And he said he just had to keep praying that. And I said, you're not the only one. We're going to pray too, okay? And in fact, we're going to do more than that, right? We're going to do more than that today, and I'll show you here in a moment. I'm going to do it all at one time. We're just going to go right now, right over to Telegram. Okay, you see this video right here? You see this video that's playing? Yeah, I can't play that on this channel because it's a little bit edgy. Oh, yeah, look at it. Oh, no. It's pretty bad. Well, no, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. But, it's one of those things I've learned, Lofton, he's a really funny guy, but he's like, who would it be? Branson. He's like the Branson, Missouri, right? So his humor is very appropriate for all ages. For me, I'm like, yeah, I'm a little bit edgier, okay? I'm a little bit out there, nothing vulgar, nothing. I'm not cussing up a storm or anything, but I'm talking about topics that are a little bit more, adult oriented and stuff. Although for the most part, it's pretty kid friendly. I would say 99.999% of everything I ever do is totally kid friendly. There's a member of the wolf pack right there. Him and his family. We're going to show this video here in a minute, so I'm not going to... It changed Paleocrat Diaries forever, okay? So I don't want to talk about that right now. Talk about it in a minute. There's another... Yeah, okay, there's another funny one. I don't mean to keep showing these, but this is part of it. We show these funny videos. This is a How Not to Treat the Ladies by a Concerned Catholic Gentleman. This is a chapter from Lessons Learned, published by the School of Hard Knocks. Yeah, totally true. Totally true. We determined, the best pizza... Pope Francis supports New York-style pizza. He said it's the best. In North America, it's a lot like saying Jimmy is the strongest kid in his elementary school. And everybody's like, well, yeah, of course. Of course Jimmy is. We all know that. We all know that as a fact. So there's a whole bunch of funny stuff over here. We have a poll going, right? We have a pool, right? We're all making bets at this point, and the person who wins on this gets to have a conversation with the newest addition, in fact, to the Wolfpack families, because Taylor and is Raphael, is that his real name? is his real name Raphael? I don't know, but his wife is having a baby. She's been in labor. We're praying her through it. Okay, so in fact, I encourage everybody right now. Okay, right now, offer up a Hail Mary, offer up a Glory Be, offer up a chaplet, whatever you got. Offer it up today. Offer it up for Taylor. One of the people we're going to be offering it up for, because she's in that zone. She's in that zone, and we're about to be blessed in this universe with another amazing Catholic child, and so super, super happy about that. But yeah, what wanted to show you here? Okay, yeah, right here. Yeah, Taylor's in labor. Everyone, prayers appreciated. So people are sharing their prayers, right? And I was like, let's help pray her through it, Wolfpack. Right? We're all pumped up. We're psyched. Level up, guys. But then this, Andrew. Hello. Thank you again for all your prayers. To update you, the situation turned for the worse yesterday, and my stepfather has been placed on a ventilator. Please keep us in your prayers. And we right away we're howling to the pack, letting them know you have to do this. This is what we're about. If we're about nothing else in the world, nothing else. Let me get back on here. I'm telling you straight up. And you know what? I know we're here for this. I know you guys we're gonna talk about this. We are. But if we are nothing else, nothing, we're prayer. We're a wolf pack of prayer. And the reason we're a wolf pack of prayer, it comes down to something that I said that happened, okay? That it was a video I said I was going to show you. I'm going to show you in a second, but I want to tell you why it was important, okay? So basically, I'll put it this way, okay? I wrote this. I said, this is the moment that changed Paleocrat Diaries forever. And in fact, I'll go ahead and I'll put it up on the screen. I'll get to the chats, by the way, the live chat. Don't let your heart be troubled. We will be in the live chat talking to you shortly enough. Do not worry about that. I got my eye on you. I'm watching you. I'm watching you. No shenanigans. No shenanigans. No trolling the Kaiser. Okay. You can't do that. No, of course you do. You do it constantly. Yesterday was the worst. It was the worst. So let's go back to Telegram, okay? This is what I wrote. I said, the moment that changed Paleocrat Diaries forever. And this is why we do what we do. Not just with Telegram. Telegram is a perfect example of this, though. And I sent out a message today to the patrons, and I said, please consider going on on Telegram. I'll create channels exclusive to all patrons, one channel exclusive, or one group exclusive to patrons at 25, patrons at this. If you would like to be part of that, if you don't, at least you can get on there. You can connect with me, videos and everything else. So the book club, the prayer chain, the group where we're together talking to each other, day-to-day stuff, everyday life, our resource page, sharing ideas, saying these are resources that have helped us in our journey. Here are prayers, okay? Here's methods of hearing mass. Here are PDFs. Here are articles. Here are religious images. Here are things that have helped us along the way. Here are rosaries that you can purchase and stuff, even from the people in the chat. I don't make money off any of that stuff. I don't make money off any of that at all. I'm literally telling Patreon folks to start going over here. You think that helps me? Because I believe in this, and here's why. Because I said this, honestly, it goes back to what was it? What day was it? January 4th, 2021. Okay? I said, honestly, this had been building up for a while. As I'd been covering the death spiral of the West, BLM and Antifa riots, you had the whole shenanigans with Russia, you had the deep state treachery, fake news, you had all the stuff about Ukraine and impeachment, you had the conquest of critical and gender theories, you had the lockdowns, you had the controversies surrounding how to deal with that, the election controversies, Detroit leaks, political violence of absolute politics, all that stuff, right? I'm talking about, and back then it was 5 days a week, 3 hours a day. I just hammer. I was Thor's hammer every day. Blam, 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 just rocking the daylights out of this. So, but I said I was talking about these topics every day, and it's tough. It's tough. Then, at the end of my January 4th, 2021 live show, this happened. Everything, I'm going to show you what happened. I'm actually going to play the video. Everything was going great, right? I was in a zone. I was rocking and rolling the microphone for hours, but I was not prepared for this. I tried watching it, and I fought hard to control myself. I don't like bawling my brains out, on camera, doing the ugly cry. I don't like that. I don't like having the ugly cry. You made me do the ugly face, bro. Right? I wasn't happy about that. But people sent me this video, and I started crying. Things that were said. And as I said, this is 2.5 hours into it, 2 hours and 45 minutes into something that I've been doing every single day, 5 days a week for literally months. 3 hours a day. Handling myself well, but not this. But it was a switch inside of me. It just flipped. I went off script, and in the heat of that moment, I unwittingly resolved on what would become nearly 7 months later, when I joined Meaning of Catholic, the heart and guiding principles of my work with Meaning of Catholic and the Wolfpack Chat. That has continued here. I like talking about fun stuff. We stayed up last night till what? What time? People in the chat, what time was it last night? Like 4 a.m. Because I'm staying up making sure my son's not going to be puking all over the place, and I'm helping my wife and stuff. So I'm staying up super late, 3 a.m, whatever. And we're talking about media theory. We're talking about two-step flow. We're talking about gatekeepers. What is that, definitionally speaking? Not super spooks. We're talking about, the basic idea of some stuff's going to hit the cutting room floor when you have a limited amount of time or limited amount of space on pages. You're going to have that. Those people are gatekeepers. We call them editors or an editorial board. But ultimately, that's the role they play for everyone else down below them and stuff. So we talked about all that stuff, right? I enjoy talking about that. That's what I went to school for. I love talking about memes, and I'll do this eventually once we're through this series. And we're not going to go forever on this. We're gonna get back to. I'm gonna pick up where Ronald Knox left off on enthusiasm in the 19th century. I want to the late 19th. I want to pick that up, and I guess a little bit of the early 20th. But I don't even know if he mentions Azusa. I forget. But I want to pick it up from there, and I want to talk about the various enthusiasms that have happened in the late 19th, the 20th, and the 21st century. I want to talk about denominations and cults, go through different histories of denominations, the key figures, how to deal with their arguments, things like that. And that's going to be a lot of fun because we're going to have fun with talking about some weirdos, to be quite frank. Right? We're going to be talking about some real weirdos, some real clown action going on. So we're going to have fun with that. We always do with the enthusiasm, talking about, having verms in the brain and enthusiasm in the veins. Right? Smacking it up every day. Give me more. Give me more. We're going to talk about that. It's going to be fun. But I like talking about memes. I like using memes for stories to guide narrative that we tell stories as it goes along and stuff, and it wraps up. I take a lot of pride in that sort of thing. But this happened, right? January 4th, 2020. That's when this happened, and it was 2021, and it changed everything. And so I want to share it here so that you understand why. Number one, why did we do enthusiasm? Why did we do that 20-part series? I have an official list up. It's going to be over at Meaning of Catholic. I'll ask Lofton if he'll post it on Reason and Theology. I'll have a table of contents in the order that it was done. And so that way you can follow along in the order that we did the entire thing. So we started from the intro and the ending, and then we worked our way from the ending, the more modern enthusiasms, and we worked our way back, all the way back to the Corinthian letters. So, but why did I do that? And why did I say during that series that I felt that enthusiasm is only half the story and that the other half is secular age? And that in understanding that view, right, looking over top, a bird's eye view of how we got here, where we are right now, getting a feel for the lay of the land, how do we move forward? Why did I choose Father Lassance? Why did I say, let's go through Father Lassance's guides for young men and young women? And why am I applying it to women and men of any age? Why am I trying to do this? What is this all about? This is what it's about. And so it's not, people want me to do funny videos. I'm going to start doing them on my own channel. My stuff is, like I said, it's a different style of humor. I know, I got in trouble for saying a word on this channel. There's not even, it wasn't, I didn't get in trouble. It was one of those words that's like, it talks about ugly, but, anyway. So it was one of those, like, I don't know how people might feel. There was no complaints or anything, but it's still like on the radar, right, of Lofton, and it's on the radar for sure of Meaning of Catholic, which is a much more serious outfit than here. I can get away with a lot more silliness over here. But it's going to have to be over at my channel. But no matter what I do with that, no matter how many funny videos I make, no matter how many of these quick 2-minute clips and stuff of just humor that's hilarious and goofy and absurd, no matter what I do with any of that, no matter what I do with the memes, no matter what I do with the news stories, no matter what, that at the core of it all is prayer. At the core of everything we do. Everything. Because it's at the core of what we do as individuals. It's at the core of what we do as a church. And it's at the core of the mission that we have in going out into the world. It's at the core. And we are, it's committed. It is totally committed that we are a wolf pack of prayer. So if you're somebody who says, look, maybe you don't know how to pray. Maybe you want to learn how to pray better. Maybe you want to just talk to other people who know how to pray or are learning to pray themselves and to be with others. And to say, help me out. What novenas do you use? What websites do you use to find out more? Where can you buy different, necessities and stuff? I just got this. My wife did. It's Our Lady of Sorrows, right? So Our Lady of Sorrows rosary here. Prayed that recently. Prayed it over at the chat, right? We were praying for Andrew Stahl. That's what we did. We prayed this. We put it on the screen so that people can pray along. We did the short form. But the idea being, if that's somebody, if you're that person, and you want to have fun and have serious conversations about God, about life, about love, about loss, you want to do that stuff and talk and be fluent in GIF talk, you want to do that, then go over there. But this right here, I'm about to show you right now, with no further ado, this is what changed everything. And I need to say the last preparatory remark is that I am friends on Facebook with this woman. I have seen people malign her. I've gone to see fact checkers, and their fact checks, or they talk to people that said, we're not sure what it is, or we think it's this, or we think it's that, or whatever, that speculate over this and that. I have connected with her. I know of the groups that she's involved with now, the people she's involved with who also experience some of these things. And I'm not going to say what they are. I don't want to get anybody in trouble with the algorithm. It's another reason we're over on Telegram. I can say whatever I want. I don't have to self-censor myself like I just did. Shame, by the way, on YouTube, by the way. Shame on you, scumbags. Scumbags, YouTube. Seriously, you're scumbags. Especially over stuff like this. Scumbags. And I mean, this might still get one of those things at the bottom that warns and everything. But we're going to play it because this day, everything was going fine. And all of a sudden, it didn't. But it resulted in everything that I'm doing now. It resulted in all of those, that space on Telegram where people are praying every single day for other people. And I want to show you what it's about. Here we go.
And I know I have a lot of support, but a lot of you people on Facebook are really mean. I didn't ask for this. And how do you just wake up one day and your whole world is wrong and it's upside down and no one helps you is beyond me. And I can't make sense of it. I can walk, but my legs just bounce. I try to stay positive, I joke around, and I know a lot of you are probably going to be jealous that I have better dance moves than you and I stand up, and that's just me trying to be positive. But tomorrow I'm supposed to go to somewhere in Eastern Kentucky and I think get a shock treatment. But I just appreciate everybody's prayers.
I can't take it. I can't take anymore. When she said, I'm so grateful for all of your prayers because it's all we have, I sat there and I said, I am so angry inside. I'm so angry inside. And that's our fault. That's our fault. The way that we dropped the ball over and over and over, the way that we allowed the wicked to completely ravage our society, the way that we allowed people under the auspice of supposed freedom to do the most wicked and slave-like things. We allowed it. We allowed it. We watched with a smile on our face and apathy in our heart as our civilization and all of our citizens were going to hell. And now the Piper's come, and all we've got is prayer. It's our fault. Mea culpa, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. It is our fault. Our most grievous, grievous fault. We have to do something. We have to do something, guys. I don't want to see more of that. I know it's coming. We have been betrayed. Our leaders have turned their backs on us. And I'll tell you what, however we reform this, however we restore this, the idea that we're going back to a world that all of that came from, no way, zero, done with that. Let that burn. I'll let those false ideas and that apathy make its way right down to the fiery pit, burning as a memorial of all time to a civilization that finally decided it was time to open their eyes and to learn and to resolve deep inside, to take the responsibility where it's due, but also to learn and say, like my daughter and like so many other amazing young children and so many other amazing people, my sister, other people who are going through terrible things, that they sit there and she's able to make a joke about dance moves because it's her way of remaining happy. Our despair would lead to death. We cannot wallow in despair
because we got to make decisions now. We have to. And I did. I made a decision. I made a decision, for one, that I was going to walk away. And people in the chat have asked, when was that? That was January 4th, 2021. I was doing 5 days a week, 3 hours a day on Holy Faith Media. It was being broadcast over 25 different channels and pages. So it might be, 6 or 7 Facebook pages one day at the same time as like 5 different YouTube channels, and it was Twitch and everything. So Periscope is awesome. Restream's a cool deal. I'll get back to that so that people will be able to watch the program. Maybe not here. That's up to Michael. But all my stuff I'll make available in multiple platforms. And so but I made a decision. I walked away. And in fact, I walked away, and there's a video, and I want to share it now. I want to share the video about the heroes and say, this is what we are. You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it right now. So you got to just forgive me, because we're gonna look this up. Let me go to my Telegram, my trusty Telegram. Let's see, legends. Let's see. Do we have? Yeah. Let's see, myth. Yeah, because it was a farewell segment, okay, on the show, and ended up just telling people, saying, look, I'm saying goodbye. I'm walking away. I believe that these times are wicked bad. And there was a particular verse that really struck me. I think it was in the book of Hosea, that was talking about, when you're wicked times, that silence is necessary, right? To remain silent because the times are bad, because the times are wicked. And so, it was one of those things where I had to make a call. But it was more to regroup myself, to regather, and to ask and say, what am I? What am I doing here? What am I doing on the show? What is this all about? What do I hope to achieve from it? Because that was going to determine the attitude of the show, the focus of the program. It used to be 45 minutes of just fun, of just goofing around and everything else and having fun, and it was great. It was a good time, right? But the priority was wrong. And it was just one of those situations where I had to really begin asking, what is the priority? What do I need to do? What am I hoping to gain from this? Where can we go? We found ourselves in a particularly wicked and heinous time. It's real bad where we found ourselves. We're in a secular age. Look at all of the wickedness all around us and the things that people do. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to look for this at the exact same time as I'm talking. But we do these, we're enduring terrible times, and it's easy to complain. Look around, by the way. Just think for a moment, right? Think for a moment of all of the videos that you watch and that you've seen where it's just pure negativity. All it is, it's cynical. And you look, we've got to be able to laugh, right? I mean, we laugh on the show. It's not just serious 24/7. We chuckle, we laugh, we have a good time. But at the same time, we have to be able to prioritize it. And what is the priority? I don't want to call out specific people, but there's got to be something to the idea that if you're out there and you're making your bread and butter off a bunch of videos that are nothing but reaction videos that are better fit for TikTok, maybe you've got yourself backward, especially if you're a doomer gloomer type, and that's almost always the case. Isn't it? Isn't it that so many of the doomer gloomers, that everything that they talk about is not only negative, but when they're laughing, even that is negative? They can't put together some kind of a path, and when they do, it's normally for some kind of dollar. It's a convention of some kind that says, hey, pay for a ticket to come see this convention where we're going to put together plans. And then they get back to their regularly scheduled program. Isn't that something? It's a real problem. And I just, I wasn't willing to do it anymore, because that's in fact what I was doing. Every day I was finding just the worst things to talk about. The worst things. And saying, well, this is what we're going to talk about. Look at this crazy person here. Look at this cuckoo bird over there. Look at this weirdo guy. This weirdo girl. Look at the weird things that they're doing and how terrible they are. And again, we should be able to talk about that. And in fact, we should be able to laugh a little bit about it. You don't want to get to the place where you can't laugh at stuff that's otherwise you're just going to cry. And I think it's good to cry. And it's good to cry over that. I think we need to. But we also need to be able to laugh. And so I'm not saying not to talk about fun things or crazy stuff. I'm not saying don't laugh at stuff that might be, terrible. You can still laugh at that. But to say you've got a priority here. You've got a priority. I'm almost there. Oh, here we go. It's revving up here for a second. So, let's see if I can download it. So, the thing is, it changed everything. And I said, we're going to talk about how we got here. We're going to talk about what this is. We're going to talk about how to get out of that. And we are going to have fun. We're going to laugh our brains out. Nobody who follows what we're doing thinks we're not having fun. But it's more. And it's loading. As soon as it's done loading, I'll drop it in. I finally found it. And I apologize for having taken so long. And I hope that I was trying to walk and chew gum at the same time. I'm pretty good at it, not gonna lie. I'm not too bad, right? I'm sitting here, I'm scrolling through like probably 1,000 different pictures and videos. I'm like, oh no, where's this video I'm trying to play for people? But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it. And here we go. There we go. I'm gonna drop it in right now. And we're gonna go ahead and play it. And then we're gonna go to the chat. And then we're going to talk a little bit about secular age. And forgive me, by the way. Forgive me for taking this time to explain this. I'm kind of new to this audience, by the way. Not everybody knows me. And in fact, some of the people who have learned of my work, I get in conversations. They have no clue about the 20-part Enthusiasm series. That's really the defining characteristic of the defining moments and defining series of everything I've ever done in all the years of radio and television, YouTube and podcasting, all of that. The most seminal thing I've ever done was cover Ronald Knox's magnum opus, chapter by chapter with analysis. It took 20 episodes to do, and it's powerful. And we have a table of contents for it, But they don't know that. They don't know, that I used to be on radio, or they don't know that I used to be on TV, or they don't know these things. And so I'm glad that you've given me just even a few moments here, maybe more than a few. But some to just level with you and tell you who I am and what I'm actually about and why I hope you're along for the ride. And if you're not, that it's okay. I might joke about you. I might crack a joke about you or whatnot. Here, let's go ahead. You're gonna hear it for a second.
Therefore, he who is
there we go. We're gonna line this up and we're gonna start it back over. Let me go ahead and drop it down. Okay. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and make it so that I can hear it too. We're going to play this, and there we go. Monitor off. Monitor and output. Close.
prudent will keep silent in such a time, for it's an evil time. When I first read it, I almost didn't use it. Because I thought, and I said, how can I be silent? How can I do that? Why is that in the Bible? And why an evil time? Is it an evil time now? Am I trying to be prudent? Am I being silent? Do we just throw up our hands? What do we do? These are a lot of things to think about. It's all the more reason to think through what's required of your life. Why did God make you, like the wise friend of mine said? God didn't call you to be a narcissist. God didn't call you to Leviathan. He did not call you to feed the panopticon. He did not tell you to serve the beast that is now gobbling up everything and trying to control your lives. The systems that are there to ravage you and your children. But I don't have that answer for you. just like my friend doesn't have an answer for me. It's weird that I'm having this conversation because the truth is, I felt that doing what I'm doing even right now, that's a calling, right? Is this genuinely what I'm called to do? Shoot stuff out into the air that's essentially spamming the world. It's some humble pie to say it's not. And I'm eating humble pie right now. By the way, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank all of you. There's so many people. By the way, I see the other comments by Stephanie. And she's talking to me. He talks about the entire subject, whatever it may be. He's genuine in his explanation. Whether we want to hear it or not, I got mad respect for the head of the wolf pack. One day you will need to read me to know me. You'll need to read me to hear me. And I'll speak more loudly and more clearly than I ever have. Because at the end of the day, to all of you, and I genuinely love you guys. You don't even know what this is like. The very people who might be sad about some of the decisions that I'm going to be making are the same ones who inspired me to become the best person I could be no matter what. Because at the end, what I said at the end of yesterday's show, I love this right here. And I want you just close your eyes, okay? Unless you're driving. If you're driving, don't close them. In fact, I'm going to take myself off of this screen. I want you to hear me. Through action, a man and a woman become heroes. Through death, a hero becomes a legend. Through time, a legend becomes a myth. And by learning from the myth, a man and a woman take action. I want you to be the hero. I want you to be the legend. I want you to become the myth. I want you to be that source of inspiration for generations to come. And it's going to require us to be willing to die. It's going to require that we give everything we've got. We're going to look at things that are really tough. Making the case is going to be hard. The world thinks you're crazy. The world's gone completely mad. The world hates you, just like it hated Jesus. But you are here right now, and I've stood by this, and I will forever stand by it. And there's no sign off tonight. I'm not going to say goodbye in the same way. I want you to know that as far as I'm concerned, you are heroes now. You are legends now. You are the making of a myth right now. You're working so hard, and you just want to do the right thing. And it's why you take a knee. It's why you've been attracted to the idea of never give up, of keep on smiling, because you are in the thick of it. Even if it's hard, even if you're afraid, it's why you've said memento mori, and it's why I have to believe that at the end of the show, you salute me back. It's why I salute you. I genuinely love you guys. You've made me the best me, and I can only hope that I've done it for you. We've got a lot more to do. And the truth is, it's only just begun.
Seven months. 7 months of silence. And we came back with a roar. We came back to meaning of Catholic. And a lot was put into that. But at the core of it all were those things that you've seen in these two videos. It was the idea that at the core of everything we do, it's prayer. That we need to be together. We need to dream bigger thoughts. We need to take a knee for Christ the King every single day. That we need to rejoice and be glad in it, but also familiarize ourselves with silence. That we need to come together to know each other, because we live in a world where we're so separated, and even social media, the way that it's been played out on things like Facebook and places like YouTube and places like Twitter, that it makes it hard to actually have a sense of community where people are able to build on ideas with each other. And everybody's kind of forced into a comment box. And that's what it is. And so you say, man, I don't even know if people saw my comment at all. And replies are tucked in and hidden under there. It's segregating. The whole thing, it's neurotic. And I said, we have to overcome this. We have to have a game plan. We have to have an aim of restoring all things in Christ. That's a big thing. We have to have a sense of ourselves in this place that says, yes, the times are really hard, but I'm not throwing my hands up in the air. Even going into silence and separating for a while was not throwing my hands in the air. It was saying, I have to prepare for something that's going to demand a lot from me. And I'm giving this thing everything I've got. It's hit or miss sometimes, right? Where people aren't perfect. People aren't perfect. But at the same time, if you give all you got and you let God do the rest, that is a wonderful recipe, right? Betty Crocker couldn't come up maybe with a better recipe for general success. To say, if you really strive, if it's been what you're striving to do in your life, that you're trying to discern your gifts and talents, you're trying to say, Lord, if that's what you want from me, if that's how you've equipped me, and that's the role you want me to play in this world, I'm embracing it with a gusto. I'm giving it all I got. I'm going to find other people that I can work with, and I can connect with them, and we can create this megazord of awesome majesty and power in this world, and we're going to rock it out, but we're not going to rock it out with cynicism. We're not going to rock it out in that way, and people in the comments say, we know what those websites are, and so do the people who run them. So do the people who run them. They are contributing to the problem, and what's crazy is many of them have a savior complex. They have a messianic complex where they think of themselves as super special snowflakes that everybody needs to follow. They're nothing more than a megaphone on a telephone pole. Everybody gather around and listen, and then they walk away. They're gone. They're gone off to the next paying gig. Where are they? So many of them. Oh, yeah, they're in a spat on Twitter. Oh, yeah, they're making another reaction video. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. But even then, it would be easy to get cynical about them. It'd be easy to get disheartened and to say, why aren't these shows getting more views than that? Because at the end of the day, for too many people, sadly, even for Catholic people who wish to remain orthodox in their faith and tradition, even for them, it's a matter of, are you not entertained? They're amusing themselves to death. They don't even realize it. They're junkies for that stuff. It's tragic. The world is suffering because of it. And we'd like to welcome you back. We'd like to welcome you back into the reality, into the actual war, not the fake LARPing that goes on with reaction videos. That's LARPing. That's LARPing. You're putting on a king outfit for the day for a couple hours in front of a camera. It's not even deserving of a cookie. But being here is. We gotta get cooking. We gotta get cooking. So all right, there it is. There's the sound. Once again, thank you so much for allowing me that time. I know it took a long time, but I had to say hello. But now, that sound, that is the alert system here at Paleocrat Diaries. It means that the carrier pigeons have been released. Angela! Have the carrier pigeons been released? Yeah! It's true. They're out there right now, flapping away. They're bringing the message to the folks. Everybody waiting around with their binoculars. People waiting around with the rugs, the carpets by the fire to send up the smoke signals so that all the folks, the average Johnny Q and Sally Sue, Catholic, working another day and another dollar, taking a knee for Jesus Christ, giving it everything they got for Christ the King, that they'll see that. And they will howl. They won't care. These wolves, they don't care, right? Because we are of the kind that we look around and we see these people. We see non-playable characters all the time. And we're surrounded by them, and they all have that mean face. They're all ticked off, all cranky and such. And they're looking at us wondering, what are they going to do today? I'll tell you what they're going to do. They're going to do a couple things. Number one, they're going to get their coffee. They're going to get their coffee and their straw, because the straw lets it go straight to the dome, right past the blood-brain barrier. Scientific proof. Scientific fact. So, and they're going to chug it down, and they're going to howl for Christ the King, resolving deep down inside, as deep as it possibly goes to the bone and the marrow. They're going to resolve to never give up, to keep on smiling, and to remember that one day, maybe even today, they too shall die So, what does that mean? Give it all you got. Give it everything you've got today. If you howl in front of those classmates and coworkers, who cares? They look at you like you're crazy, who cares? You know who they are. They're crazy as it is. Come on, son. Ow! You gotta give it. You gotta give it up. Because we were created for this very purpose. We were placed in such a time as this. We got to do our best, which is why, by the way, I am here. So you got to pray also. Real quick, last thing. You got to pray for some folks, okay? There are some folks right now. For one, I got news, and it's sad news, in fact. I got news that, oh, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? Oh, no. Where's YouTube? No. I had YouTube on here. Where is it? Oh no, is it back on the intro? Is it back on the intro? Did I put it over there? Oh no. I thought I had it on here. You know what? I'll go ahead and I will pop this up. Let's go ahead. I know what happened. Yeah, the window capture is true, but it's a new pop out box, right? Yeah. So pop out, need to go to properties real quick, need to go to the YouTube, and there we go, okay? So there we go. We're going to go ahead and make it a little bit bigger so we get more comments in there. So scrolling all the way up. For one, check it out right away, right out of the gate. What did I tell you? These people are freaks and geeks. They've got the wolves. Look at the wolves. Jacob Fowler thinks he's clever. He's putting wolves in brackets. What do you like? And you're a double wolf. How are you a double wolf, Jacob Fowler? How are you a double wolf, bro? I love you, man. I love you. Yeah, double bracket. Oh, to irritate the Kaiser. How dare you? How dare you, buddy? You just wait. I'm coming for you. All right. Wish you could stick around and watch. We're being developed professionally today at school, and not paying attention is, frowned upon. That's, isn't that the proper thing, though? Isn't that what it means when we say that we're giving our best and our all? Because if people are at work and they're like peeking over their shoulder all the time trying to get a little bit of Paleocrat Diaries in, I do understand that. You might be given an indulgence from the Kaiser. However, at the same time, you got to realize you're working for the Lord. You're working for the Lord. And there's a replay. Plus, there's a Wolfpack chat. Get over there. Get over there and talk to us over there. Yeah, so Venera, yeah, it's good to see you, by the way. Same thing with Phil. Oh, Phil's joining in the bracket wolf. Yeah, it's not right. It's not right. Reverend Joe, Deacon Joe. That guy's a great guy. He actually has a spiritual direction page now connected with Paleocrat Diaries on Telegram. He's doing some spiritual direction for people. If you'd like to know more about that, make sure, of course, to go check that out. Mikey Joe with the Wolf, glad to see you. Yep, fashionably late as always. It's true. It's true. It's part of the deal. It's part of the package, right? I think that was actually in my contract. I said I'm reasonably late on purpose all the time. Yeah, right. Oh yeah. Yeah, David is making up some standard time thing, KST. That's not even real. Nobody believes in that, David. Nobody believes in that. There's only Eastern and Pacific, and you know that's a fact. You know that is a fact. Eric says, I'm still not Catholic. Changed my mind. Have we ever talked, by the way, Eric? Have we ever talked? When you say you're studying Catholic theology closely, I do cover your prayers. Yeah, well, of course we'll pray for you. Of course. We had somebody recently come into the Wolfpack chat. They're not Catholic either. Most people are. I think we got one or two. We also had a Muslim troll that came in. It wasn't even to troll us on religion, man. It was to troll us on Bitcoin. I thought Bitcoin was a fake thing, and all of a sudden I went to this Telegram account and I made a bunch of money. Check it out. like, get out of here, man. Get out of here, Buster. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? Yeah, Steven says, what am I watching? Where's the King of Nuance? Steven, the King of Nuance picked me up. I didn't just interrupt here. I didn't just Michael Lofton's at home. He's biting his nails. Oh no. How did this guy get on my channel? What is this all about? Oh no. I'm the guy that helped the King of Nuance set up his Telegram chat. And if you're not over there, you're not really following the king. You're not a good subject. You need to go over and find reason in theology over there because you can connect with other very nuanced people, in fact, over there. They've been creating stickers and cool little GIFs and stuff for them. It's been really cool to connect with those folks. So, Stephen, you got to go over there. You got to go over there. Let's see. He's back again. Just asking, my friend. I'm not knowledgeable enough to explain our doctrine. I will absolutely pray for you. Okay, yeah. That's legit. So I hope you stick around, Stephen. But yeah, the big man, the big kahuna over here, right? He is the one who picked me up, interviewed me. I don't know if you saw the interview. The interview was before Halloween, and it had to do with terror, tragedy, and what was the third one? Terror, tragedy, and I forget what the third one was. But it was basically the idea that there's like a testimony or something like that. I talked about my testimony. I talked about a crazy story, and then we talked about the exorcism of, I believe it was late 1995 or early 96. I'd have to go back and get the exact date on it, stuff like that. Let's see here. All right. The Change My Mind business was tongue-in-cheek. I'm familiar with the argumentation. I just haven't made a decision yet. And look, isn't that exactly, guys, and I'm not meaning to use you as an example, Eric. This is just for people who are familiar with what I'm talking about. Isn't that the point? People are familiar with the arguments. They know the syllogisms. They know the logic. They know our propositions. They know the doctrines. But at the end of the day, for most modern people, that's just simply not what does it. In fact, I would dare to say that for most people that have ever existed ever, that most of the reasons are different. They're beyond that. You can know all of that. You've downloaded the information to the brain, but there's still something. There's still something that separates them from the Catholic Church. And that when that happens, and for some people it's different. For some people, whatever that is, it's a different thing. Different strokes, different folks, right? So you got different kinds of people, you got different kinds of experiences and priorities and such. But that's why we have to have an apologetic endeavor that doesn't rely, all our eggs in the basket of premise to conclusion. We got to be better than that. That's why I love the new evangelization. I do. I think the new evangelization is prophetic for our time, that it says, look, this is the time we're in. This is how you deal with this. That's not to eradicate the old evangelization. I think that's a very uncharitable rendering of that. And it's definitely not how we play it out on this show. People on this show, they know we're talking gospel 24/7, right? Oh, praise report. Apparently, Alphonsus Antonio de Silva was born at 3:06 a.m. and only 3-hour labor. We were talking about an individual in the chat, praying for them, praying them through. Apparently, the baby came, and Alphonsus, man, I gotta love it. That's my Christian name, man. Yep, Jeremiah Alphonsus. And so, Alphonsus Maria. And look, if you have Alphonsus in there, man, you got to have a Maria in there. Or a Marie. You have to have some kind of, because he's a Marian saint, man. So you got to do that. I don't know if you knew that. It's part of the rule, dude. It doesn't count. He's not Alphonsus yet. He's not Alphonsus unless you throw a Mary in there. So, all right, let's see. Reason in theology. Yep, he was born. Okay, yeah, you already told me that. Yeah, thank you for the super chat. If you'd like to give super chats, I just need to let everybody know that as it stands, okay, what I do here is just at the grace and mercy of Michael Lofton. So even ads and stuff that I promote, the only way that people can promote me is if they actually go to my Patreon or go to my website, paleocratdiaries.com, and they can become members over there. Patreon is easy. A lot of people use that. But super chats, that kind of thing, that will go to Michael Lofton. So, and just so people know, YouTube takes out massive chunks of that. And so, I saw somebody gave like $50 recently, and the thing is that they gave about 25. Because I'm dead serious. YouTube takes out massive, massive amounts. Enslaved by Truth, good morning. It's good to see you, by the way. Let's see here. Yeah, someone was asking, how old was this, that they've never seen me like that. Yeah. Weinschel. I still don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Weinschel? Weinschel? I don't know how to pronounce that, man. Barretto. I'm going to call you Barretto. You're Barretto, bro. Or I'll just call you Wine Barretto. Yeah, I've never seen Jeremiah like this. Wow, talking about the video. If you want to see a highlight reel that's available on my YouTube channel, You can see a mishmash of things ranging from totally insane, goofy, all the way to, intense political commentary to very serious political and religious discussions. And it just kind of all over the board. It's a really fun highlight video. A little bit crazy, but it's fun. All right, let's see. Paleocrat, your energy is so much I don't know what to do with it, but I love it. This is James's interviews. Look, I'm glad, man. Look, it's just the way I roll, right? It's the way I roll, and it's part of the thing. Now, people who get to know me, they'll be like, there's a little bit of shtick to this. I'm talking into a Canon EOS, 250D. I mean, I'm talking by myself in a room. I got lights and stuff, and I got a microphone, and I'm looking at a screen. But I'm by myself fundamentally. I got my workers out there, my worker bees. I got Little Louie and Big Wolf, right? 3 and 1.5. So, I got my mega hot half Korean beauty queen wife / secretary, and she's out there too. In fact, I need. Hey, Angela. Yeah. I need some juice or something. It's just an excuse. I just wanted to give me a kiss on the cheek. It's one of the perks, guys. It's one of the perks, and that's in her contract. It's in her contract. She's like, yeah, kisses. Little kisses. All righty here. Yeah, Adam says, good morning, all. Second-time listener here. Glad to see you. Oh, what is it? Alpha and Omega Reformed YouTube. Read John Calvin. Dude, I not only used to read John Calvin, I was a Calvinist for years. I made video. I was a pastor. I went for a brief time, admittedly. Only stopped because I ended up having a baby that cost an arm and a leg in New Jersey. It cost about $25,000, insurance issues and stuff like that. And so had a baby. Could no longer go to Bonson Theological Seminary. I had gone there for a brief period, was originally going for presuppositional apologetics. I'd been studying theonomic ethics, things like that. And I watched, I used to have a Zanga channel that just debated Catholics all the time. That's what I used to do, right? But I read the Institutes. I read more than that. And you were a Catholic for years. Okay, so yeah, tit for tat. Whoop-de-doo. Then what's your point? That's what I'm saying. And he's like, well, you know what? It ends with us. Go read John Calvin. I mean, listen now. By the way, that's an enthusiasm, isn't it? A little bit. You got somebody that's their hobby horse. They come rolling in, and the very first thing they're like, look, I got my magic bullet. I got my hypodermic needle. If you want to know the real truth of the gospel, you got to read this one guy who interpreted it. Yeah, the pillar and foundation of truth, John Calvin. I made a video, homie. I made a couple videos on Calvinists converting to Catholicism. You may have seen it, in fact, back in the day. Thought
you wanted to kiss.
I do want to kiss. Especially because I'm dealing with this cat here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alpha and Omega Reform YouTube. I'm having fun, by the way. I would probably get along with you. We'd probably have a good time. I don't know. You might be, one of those. I doubt you're a teetotaler. I doubt you're like one of those. So maybe, we can sit down, have ourselves some beer and stuff. I think we'd have a good time. And we'd have probably a lot of stuff we could talk about. You having been a former Catholic, myself having been a former Calvinist, I think we'd have a good discussion. But you can find my videos on Calvinism. I have one that says, I'll become Catholic when. That's on my YouTube channel over at Paleocrat, as well as Calvinists convert to Catholicism. I lay out a number of the reasons. And this is back in the day when federal vision was still a hopping thing, right? So I'm telling you when I made these videos. So it was a while ago that I made videos pertaining to that. I made ones about sola scriptura, made ones about it being anarchistic, right? And that basically all the sola scriptura being anarchistic, resulting in that inevitably. In fact, that's part of the story with secular age, which is interesting. I think you'd appreciate it because we actually have a situation where we're taking from a book, okay? We're taking from a book for the next 45 minutes on it's called How Not to Be Secular. And it's by a professor right here at Calvin. I live in Grand Rapids, right up the road from Calvin College. A lot of my friends went to Calvin. And so he is a teacher over there, but the book is analyzing a tome, a massive book, and I don't know if I've got it. I had it laying around somewhere. I'm not even going to look for it. It's a massive book, like 600 pages, by a Catholic guy named Charles Taylor. You can see him on the cover, of course, of this book. And so mixing it up a little bit. And I told people, I said, look, I still to this day find a great deal to benefit from various claims made in apologetics from folks, especially like Bonson and Van Til. I think that the transcendental argument has its home ultimately in the Catholic Church, and I contend that it was the method of argumentation used by St. Francis de Sales in Catholic controversy against the Protestants. And so I look, it's not to dog anybody, it's not to say that. And I'm grateful for a number of the things. I mean, it was federal vision and all that. It was a golden brick road to Rome, man. It was a golden brick road to Rome. You start taking the church fathers seriously again, and not and coming off a little bit less like George Fox and company, right, with their inner light nonsense. And my personal interpretation, me and my Bible and the Holy Ghost giving me the wisdom to come up with the answers to this stuff. And I know that is a little bit of a straw man. There's different views on that. I'm not meaning to be, again, having a little bit of fun. Yeah, a Goy for Jesus says, I used to be Catholic, I'm Calvinist now. It's a tragedy. It's unfortunate, but it happens. It's rare. Calvinism is kind of like, pegging your pants. You know what I mean by that? French rolling your pants? That you're not going to have like a lot of people doing that, but when it comes back, it kind of comes back with a gusto for like half a second. And then typically after a couple years, people look back on those pictures. Or like the girls back in the 80s when they would roll their hair up really, really high and curl it forward. And that was like all the rage and stuff. But we all kind of look back on that and we lament it. And then it comes back later and everybody's warning and saying, don't. I've lived through this. I've lived through this. Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, man. And by the way, no, I've said that Roman that tag, the transcendental argument for God. I've been making that claim since the early days of YouTube when people were even making videos at all. In fact, some of my videos on that subject were around before anybody was posting Bonson videos. So you got to cut that out, dude. And again, I make the contention, and I defy people to tell me I'm wrong. Show me I'm wrong. That the arguments that are used it's the twofold argument, right? It's the transcendental argument that is used in order to come after the individuals in Geneva. And it was, look how successful it was, by the way. Look at how successful it was. And of course, it comes back to saying the same reasons I believe the true home of that method is in the Catholic Church, is because without it, you're left with sola scriptura. And as we know, we can see through the facade of like, oh, we agree on the fundamentals. You have nobody with an authority to say there is a fundamental. And the best you got is to say that something, you would say, oh, this is self-evident. Or it testifies in my spirit. Well, it doesn't testify in everybody's spirit. And then you have to fall back on some fake normative standard. It's not very respectable. It isn't. It's kind of like, well, I mean, if it floats your boat, I guess, but don't expect me to be impressed by that. And so if you want to have a Christian worldview, for you, there would be no such thing. And I've used the example before that you could have the worldview, for example, the normative worldview of Greg Bonson, as opposed to the normative worldview of someone like William Penn. You could have the difference between people who are Pentecostal, people who are Methodist, John Wesley. Just take the big names. Don't even go after the small apple people, right? Don't go after the stuff like that. Go just take the big titans. And I've said, here's a great example. One faith, one Lord, one baptism. You guys cannot deal with it. You can't. And the reason you can't deal with it, I had a great example. And I said, show me I'm wrong. Why don't you and Goy team up on this and do this project, right? I said, here's how it works. It's really simple. So I said, you would have two guys take, in my story, it would be, at the time, R.C. Sproul, when he was still alive, right? Is a guy that big impact on me, in fact, even to this day. His series on ideas have consequences, the consequence of ideas. A brilliant series. I still have it on VHS, still watch it. And so, big time influence. And John MacArthur. These two were friends. But these two disagreed. And I said, let's just take one topic. Let's take baptism. And I said, let's take baptism. Two guys, wildly popular. And I said, let them say that they're going to spend the remainder of their lives only studying that topic, to say one faith, one Lord, one baptism. We got to at least settle some of this. So they said, well, we're going to focus on this one part of that threefold formula there. We're going to go ahead and we're going to focus on baptism. So they do it, and they spend the remainder of their days studying original documents. Let's give them full access to every original document in the world. They go and they touch the manuscripts. They're looking at it. They're analyzing it. They're going through all of the different magisterial Protestants, right? They're going through all of that stuff. And at the end, let's say hypothetically that R.C. Sproul and John MacArthur, right, that they came to the same solution. And the solution being that John MacArthur admits he was wrong. And John MacArthur says, look, I was wrong about infant baptism. I was wrong about it. And so they're going to come together and they said, look, we're going to lay out our case. We're going to write a book about it. We're going to do a press release to all the major news stations in the world. We're going to send a press release to every single Protestant denomination in the world that uses this argument that there's fundamentals and that we agree on them. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a press conference and let them know that after all of our study, we came to the conclusion that infant baptism is true. Well, guess what? Whoop-dee-doo. Nobody's going to care. People aren't even going to watch it. They're not going to watch it. And I don't know where you stand, but would you even care? I'm dead serious. Would you even care? If you're somebody who believes in believer baptism, would you give a rat's rear end if MacArthur came down and said that after his lifetime of study, separating himself from everything, praying and fasting all the time, having access to original documents, saying, God, I only want what you say is true. And that these two titans come together. Now, maybe it's a no true Scotsman, and you go, well, you know what? The reason was because you didn't have James White. Yeah, that's what James White says about himself all the time. You didn't have me there. It would have been a lot different, believe me. Yeah, that's what he said when I converted to Rome, by the way. So, you got this situation where you go, man, what do you do? But the thing is, that's on a fundamental. One faith, one Lord, one baptism. That's how we unite. You guys can't even do it. And we haven't even gone into one faith and one Lord. That's easy, man. Go pick up an old telephone book and you tell me with a straight face. That's phony. It's a facade. It's an opiate that Protestants give themselves to weaken the fact that they are, at the core, a reactionary movement. They're purely protesting, and they don't know when to stop. It's Pandora's box. And now everybody's got worms in their brain. Everybody's at worms, and they're their own leader now. And you can say all you want. And it's not true. Even one church. You back in the day, you even at the time of Saint Francis de Sales, you would have to have a situation where you would go to an ordinary, by and large. You'd go to an ordinary of your denomination or whatever. These started cropping up. It's inevitable. It's a group dynamic. So group dynamic, somebody separates. Eventually, you have a division. People disagree. Somebody's going to have to set up an institution that lays down the law and puts together a catechism. Sometimes they're bold enough to say that even the angels wouldn't be able to deny their catechism. Luther and stuff, But, the thing is that once they do that, another group says, well, I don't like that, so they start their own. And from that point forward, they have this understanding that, well, if I accept you as a pastor, where did you get your orders from? Where did you get your papers from? Where are you ordained from? Who or what and when were you ordained, right? And yet now people can start a home church. They can start a home church. Under what authority would the denomination itself, the formation of that denomination, where do you even get the authority to do that? If someone says, well, you can't just start your own church. You can't just start your own denomination. That's not right. You say, based on what? That's what you did. That's what you did. Isn't that a kind of a sucker's trick? It's kind of silly. It's kind of silly, man. By kind of silly, I mean it's at the source of so much trouble. So much trouble. All right, and by the way, if you guys want to address me specifically, make sure to put Paleocrat in the in the comment, just at Paleocrat, and that way a little orange thing will pop up. Okay, so you can see here. Let's see. Yep, see that? See James? He has that there. That allows me to see it. Otherwise, look, it's just a bunch of letters. That's gonna be. It's not so easy to see because you got to scan that real fast. So make it easy a little bit, right? So you got to make it this. And by the way, about Bonson would not, as far as I'm aware, would not identify with Thomism. That would be part of his debate. If you want to hear the difference between a Reformed person who's influenced by Thomistic apologetic methodology versus Bonson, go and listen to R.C. Sproul's debate with Greg Bonson. It's a fascinating debate, in fact. It's one of my favorite debates, kind of intramural thing that I've ever heard. It's a fascinating conversation. They're charitable toward each other, but they're also strong in their takes and positions. And so that was one of those things that R.C. Sproul, for the entirety of his life, in fact, took a position that placed a lot of emphasis even on Aquinas and natural law, immediate revelation, so not immediate. That was a big difference that they had with each other and stuff like that. So we'll talk about that another time. All right. Let's see. Window capture off. No. Do I have a black screen on there? Oh no. What the blazes? Oh no. Why is this not showing up now? This is not good, guys. This is not good. Oh no. So okay. For some reason, I'm just going to go to properties. I'm just going to find this now. We're just going to go ahead and browse. And that way I can just go ahead and do the exact same thing as before because for some reason it's not showing up. So I'm going to have to do individually. It's probably going to be big. Oh no. Oh no. Window capture. There we go. See, I'm going to have to do that for every one of them. I'm sorry about that, guys. So, okay. Reform. We're going through this. We got to the place reforming ourselves to death. And look, I know I went a little ways here with the Calvinist guys in the chat. I hope you're okay with that. Maybe this is flowing a little bit more like a crazy morning show, like it should be, and not like a lecture series per se. But, we're talking about reforms. We're talking about reformed people. We're talking about reformed theology. We're talking about reformed apologetics. The problem is that reform in the position that I'm maintaining here, okay, the position that I'm maintaining in this program is that Reformation is at the heart of what ultimately led to our secular age, okay? And so if people want to understand, let me see here real quick. Yeah, it's just for a definition, I want to have an exact definition for you guys. A fulcrum is a thing that plays a central or essential role in an activity, event, or situation. So here's a Protestant guy at a Reformed college, and people can complain, say, Calvin College. I know the Westminster hot take on that. I know what that is. And so, but the thing is, the idea of reform being the fulcrum of modernity, okay? And I left my notes in the margins here as well, right? And I said, this rubric names a range of movements already underway in the late medieval period, and so it shouldn't be reduced to the Protestant Reformation. I'm actually really glad that he pointed that out when talking about what is reform. A lot of people, because of the prominence of the Reformation and Reformed theology and the way that many historians have wrongly described it, and we talked about that in our Enthusiasm series, talking about the underworld of medieval heresy and how that set the stage for the acceptance of Luther's stand at Worms and the consequences of this. But it was something that should not be reduced to the Protestant Reformation. It's one of the reasons why I was particularly unimpressed by somebody who claims that they read the book and they're doing an analysis of it. And they write otherwise good stuff over at Imaginative Conservative and saying, it could be boiled down to the Protestant Reformation. It wouldn't take any more than that. Well, no, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. And for no other reason than you can actually go and read about what led up to the Protestant Reformation, even going all the way back to Corinth. And you can do that, of course, not just by reading the book by Ronald Knox, but also by checking out the 20-part series that I did on Meaning of Catholic. Okay? The Reformed movements are generated and the pressure we noted above, that difficult space of unstable equilibrium between the demands of the eternal and creaturely life. So you got to think, life, the creaturely demands that we have right now are still tough. Right? We go through really hard times. But if we want to even compare what we go through right now with what people just like us had to go through, let's say, in the 1400s and 1300s and even earlier, that's a disingenuous and uncharitable take, right, to people in the past. They were going through things that were not just more difficult with like, well, what happens if my kid gets a toothache? What happens if he gets a little bit of infection in his gums? The little dude might die, by the way. Little dude might die. You weren't just popping around antibiotics left and right. You'd be walking around, you'd be part of the Crips. You get an infection in your leg, you're going to be part of the Crips, and that's if you even survive. Right? You're going to be representing with your crutch, with little Tiny Tim and such. But that space, that equilibrium that the past tried to maintain, the hierarchy at the time, tried to maintain between the demands of everyday life and the demands of the eternal. What are you expected to do to live? We talk about it here, don't we? We say we take a knee every day, giving our best and our all. We're Johnny Q. Sally Sue's. We're Johnny Q. Sally Sue Public. Another day, another dollar. Right? Waking up early. Right? The early bird gets the worm kind of thing. Don't burn the wick at both ends type of thing. And that way you can dress for success and all that and do your best and make the money. But at the same time, we're also the kind of people that say we also need to do our best to understand how ought we to pray. How ought we to live? How ought we to love? How ought we to hate anything? Like what should we hate and how? How does that play itself out? These kind of things, these would be demands of the eternal upon our lives. So you have both things happening. In the hierarchical structure that you had back then, it would have been more dramatic. It would have been more dramatic, especially as the expectations that oftentimes were in the monastery became more and more familiar to people outside. It became porous. So it began seeping out of the monastery more and more and more to where an individual, we make fun of half Catholics and stuff. A lot of people will make fun of them and say that's just a person, they go to church, on Sunday or, every once in a while but they're not really praying or doing, the various chaplets and devotions and everything else, or reading saintly books. Most people back then weren't reading at all. There were many people that they weren't reading. That's why one of the defenses we have of stained glass windows and imagery. And so there were expectations on them that weren't as demanding. So people who their life was dedicated, their vocation landed them in that place, that person would have a greater demand. But that also put pressure on them to make up for the lack of society at large. It was already going through hard stuff enough, just even to survive, as well as to provide for them. So there was a profound dissatisfaction with the hierarchical equilibrium between lay life and the renunciative vocations. So I put in there often, but not always. Okay? Man, oh goodness. That's really going to do this the whole time. I have to go every single time, and I got to get the next picture. There we go. There we go. So the point is that sometimes these reforms that took place were from enthusiasms. And these enthusiasms were not always because there was a pressure, right? Sometimes there were a wide array of interests. Now he might be talking about societally, but I don't believe that societally it's all just cropping up organically. I think it's an interplay between what people are experiencing themselves and what individuals, more charismatic leaders would say, look, I believe that this is something that the church has done that's wrong. And sometimes it might not even be because of rigor. In fact, it's one of the issues I have with the book is that a whole bunch of the enthusiasts were in fact rigorous. And they were saying that the church was too relaxed. And that was one of the reasons. And the reason I bring these people up, rather than just society as a whole, is because there's a two-step flow for most things. And the two-step flow for most things would be you have influencers. We see this, people talk about Instagram. You have influencers. These are people who peddle ideas, and a lot of individuals will follow what they're saying. They're compelling people with compelling stories, and they got something to sell. And so they play a role. And I think that that can be diminished, not entirely, but I think that it doesn't play as prominent of a role as it ought to within the ideas put forward in this book. He talks about how sometimes, is that really the second one? Oh, that's going to kill me. Here, let me go and get this, because for some reason when I restarted this program, all of the things that I had lined up, everything that I had lined up here. Oh, okay. Let's see here. Let's see if I can just put that in. Yeah. Okay. That's easier. There we go. Division of labor between religious vocation. There was a two-tiered religion. It was a multi-speed system. You can see this kind of thing cropping up, for example, with the Quietists, right? Which would make sense of the timing of all of this, right? So not in the lead up to the Reformation, but not long after it either, where you have this idea that Madame Guyon was very interested in the French school, so she was very interested in studying the works of spiritual fathers in the church, people, the saints who had led the way and now have paved the way and become, in fact, some doctors in the church for their works on spirituality. But some of those things, and we learned this recently. We're going through Interior Castle by St. Teresa of Avila. We weren't entirely sure getting into it. We thought that would be a good one to pick. It might not have been the best one for beginners to do. And I can imagine somebody, if we feel this way now, I can imagine somebody back in the day feeling that this is especially difficult. I mean, at least we have 5-day work weeks, most people. I work 6, but most people, they're working 5, so they have more time for leisure. They may not use it wisely, but they have it. And you may not have certain demands and everything else that people back then would have. And so they would say, well, okay, if I try to follow this method, this is extraordinarily difficult. This is really tough. So the ideas of a Guyon, for example, of the Madame, would have been particularly appealing to them. Because they could say, look, all I got to do is just be quiet. I don't even need to think. I can shut my brain off. Why do I need to worry about all that stuff that Teresa of Avila is talking about? Or St. Francis de Sales is talking about? They want me to, walk into different mansions, and they want me to understand what each one is, and I'm envisioning, monsters and stuff like that, and all this, and there's this kind of beautiful diamond in the center sort of thing, and the light, and all this, and they're like, well, I could just shut my brain off all the way, and just sit there and bask, and it could be a single act. In fact, I wouldn't even have to go back to go to confession anymore. So rather than think about the more that people began to think that they would need to do a regular examination of conscience, more frequent communion, more frequent confession, stuff like that, that in doing so it'd come with an examination of conscience, and they'd say, well, I can go through, according to Guyon, I can do a single event. Bada boom, bada bing, man. That's the golden ticket, son. That's the golden ticket, man. Charlie, you got it, dude. You won, bro. You won the ticket. All you got to do is just shut your brain off, man. You just got to shut your brain off. So it makes sense that it would be appealing. Conversely, because spiritual pressure was sequestered to the religious vocation, the weight of virtue was relaxed for the wider population. Carnival was effectively generalized, and some felt that the laity was being let off the eternal hook. That is where enthusiasm comes in. That's where. Oh, and by the way, thank you. Thank you, Mikey Joe, in the comments. Mikey Joe, he said, don't forget to credit my crying Luther. I am so sorry, bro. Because I don't see it once it goes on. And I got caught up, man. That the thumbnail for the show, the picture of Luther with his crying eyeballs and red eyeballs, that is compliments of Mikey Joe in the comments with the Mega Man profile picture. So big, let's give real quick round of applause. Okay, I mean it. Just stop for a second and do this. I don't care where you are. Get louder. We love you, Mikey Joe. Make more stickers like that, Mikey. Make more stickers like that, dude. I promise. And I'll do better about making sure to mention you earlier on in the show. And I appreciate it, man. The stickers you've made are awesome. And I'll make sure to use those as frequently as I can, and we'll have a lot of fun. So, yeah, Mikey Joe, credit for the crying Luther on the thumbnail of this episode. All right. Taylor suggests that we will not understand 1968 or 2018 without some chronological archaeology that takes us back to 1518. Now, I put in here, and I'm gonna pop open the the book here so that I can go ahead and do this myself, because I wrote in the margins, but it's kind of hard to read on the screen. And I said right here, problematic as a starting point, right? Because let's see, fuse secular age and enthusiasm. That's what I said. I said, so we could go back much further than that. Now, he decides that he's going to take approximate starting point for a vast societal thing, right, taking place with the 1500s. That makes sense, right? But as we said, it actually goes back much further than that. And for that backstory, to say why 1518 ended up being 1518, make sure to go check out that series on enthusiasm. At its heart, reform becomes a drive to make over the whole society to higher standards. It's rooted in the conviction that God is sanctifying us everywhere, okay? And so I'm going to go ahead and drop this booger in now. Let's go ahead and drop this thing in. There we go. Yeah, so it's not exactly lined up like I would want, but it's at least easier to read now, right? But so you've got the situation where at its heart, reform becomes a drive to make over the whole society. Now we're living well past this, and we're living even within Catholicism that says the same thing. Remember, I did an entire video on Pope St. Pius X's encyclical on restoring all things in Christ. He's talking about everything we do, all of our work. In fact, the social encyclicals of the church are exactly about that, saying that the truth of the gospel and the influence of Catholicism will permeate the entirety of society, and that it's progressively going to get better in that sense, to the extent that Catholicism makes its way. However, when we do this, there are other things that end up happening to those who do not believe what we believe for the same reasons that we believe them. Same thing with Protestantism. Same thing with any religion that if it ends up percolating and ends up reaching a critical mass, and all of a sudden people are talking about their religion publicly. People are by and large expected to be of that religion, but there's still a lot of individuals in society as a whole is still operating off of non-religious, strictly speaking, principles, and saying that, well, you would have a kind of civility, you'd have a kind of etiquette that would arise, especially in those who are in positions of power. But it wouldn't be for the same reasons. We see this play itself out. Have you ever heard or have you ever felt, for example, when you talk about SJWs, right? It's an unfortunate phrase, by the way, but it's what it is. And so I'm not going to go to bat over whether or not something should be called something. But the idea is, so many times we may see this and say, there's a kind of puritanical spirit in that. There's this kind of religiosity within the SJW world that has this strict code, and there's enforcement, right? There's a great deal of shame that's being used in order to attain ends. It's not just through the propagating of these things and raising the children in these ways and everything else. Those ideas, right? And it comes out in many ways where they're also against raunch culture, for example. So there's a lot of them who are different from earlier wave feminists and stuff like that, and not just on the tranny topic, but on other ones that say, hey, look, there are, these women who wear raunchy clothing or barely any clothes and stuff, that's raunchy, and they think that that's bad. They believe it's an exploitation of women. They believe that there's an exploitation of children. They believe that exploitation is happening left and right. So they would see that and would say, well, we actually kind of agree a little bit. They should kind of think that, yeah, I mean, I can jive with that, not for the same reasons that they do. But what they don't understand is that idea of reforming the world, and that idea of raising the bar and these expectations of civility and political correctness, that these things and are not just random. They didn't just arise from secularism, right? As if religiosity went away and these things arose. This was an interplay between society at large and a leveling that took place of a hierarchical structure that used to have more of an emphasis on spirituality for those who it was reserved for, and a greater acceptance of everyday people doing everyday things. And that over time, those things began to be leveled. And as that began to be leveled, you saw the benefits of it with lay people being able to have access to various things like Bibles more frequently, for example. Not as if they were barred completely, but they would have greater access to them, greater access to religious books and devotions, and an expectation that they would begin to do everything they do in their life, in fact, for the glory of God. Together with these and commitments begin to propel a kind of perfectionism about society, right? And that's the difference between the perfectionism that you see within SJWism and the kind of restoration eschatology that you see with St. Pius X. But this is something that the earlier society would have never even been able to imagine. And that's the point, is that an earlier society before various reforms took place, it would have been difficult for the society at large to even envision this, much less to apply it. Because there was a stricter hierarchical code that said, I know my role. I know my pay grade. I know what I'm supposed to do. I am not a monk. I am not a nun. I am not a priest or a bishop. And I have my role. I'm a worker. I'm a soldier. I'm a father or I'm a mother. And that would have been very, very easy for them. In fact, that would have been almost borderline exclusive, with the rare occasion saying, you got to go to Mass. You got to do certain prayers. Any gap between the ideal and the real is going to be less and less tolerated, either because more is going to be expected of a society in terms of its being sanctified. So over time, the more that Christianity permeates that society, the more sanctified that's going to be. You're going to see expectations. We see this with cancel culture and what happens when it goes away. When Christianity is ascendant and permeating a society, more people, even unbelievers, have in their head this idea that it's still redemptive if somebody makes a big mistake. That it's redemptive that you would say, yeah, that person messed up. I may not trust them. They're going to have to work their way back up, but this is a real Jesus moment. And it made sense to even secular people to say that. And I don't think that's bad. I think it's a good thing. But it comes with a cost. Because if people aren't meeting the bar, you can either focus on helping people reach higher, or you can lower the bar. This is why reform unleashes both Puritanism and the 1960s. It's why it unleashes traditionalism and this kind of, innovation that goes on all the time. It's why you have the reform is resulting in a world where you have the reaction to reforms that are reforming reforms. You have reactions that say this is bad, we need to get back to this, or you have groups that say it's not going far enough. But at play with this is this expectation that we either have to raise people up to the standard that's now expected across the board, more across the board than it was before in this leveled world, or we lower the bar for everybody. Fundamentally, there's a leveling here, right? Reform ratchets up expectation. And I said, but a society, I wrote here, societal self-deceit. It's fueled by a false expectation, false prudence and zeal. So actually that's the next part here. The flip side of the new sanctification of ordinary life, a refusal of sacred profane distinctions and the beginning of the erosion of the sacred and secular distinction. Domestic life is affirmed as a sphere of grace. It's not just priests and nuns who are religious. The butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker can also undertake their mundane, this worldly task with a sense of devotion and worship. Now, this is true. This is true. But I say one of the things that's missing here, one of the things that's missing and why Catholicism is the answer is because we can see the moderating influence of our theology It's a balancing act. For example, take Opus Dei. Opus Dei would be a perfect example of a group, an entity that would say that they want to kind of have the everyday life, that there's something sacred about everyday life. That what you do with your work is a kind of liturgy that you're offering up to God. It is a prayer. Everything you do from the moment you wake up to the moment you go down, right? Everything. And that you're offering this up to God as a sacrifice to Him. Yet, it doesn't end there, and it doesn't start there either. Because it starts, according to them, the beginning of every day at the Mass. And the Mass, you may say that that there's a reflection in that we can say, well, there are elements of that might also be true of this. But if I'm sitting here drinking my juice on the show, as part of what I do, or drinking my coffee on the show, that's not the same as the priest up there with the chalice. There's a difference there. There's a difference between me putting my book together and the Pope breathing over the elements, breathing over the Eucharist. And so we would have that. Whereas if you don't have that distinction and you don't have the both and, then you're at a place where you're just making everything in life sacred. Well, that's good for you. But the more that expectation rises for everybody, insofar as those people have been influenced, the society at large, if they reject or do not fully embrace for the same reasons the beliefs you have for doing those things, that is going to be baptized with another belief system. And that belief system, as it's come to be now, we call political correctness and secularism. High expectations of sanctification now spill beyond the walls. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and add this one now. He talks about there being this kind of mendicant asceticism. And he says, look, you know, I just bought a book actually on lay monasticism, right? I just bought a book on it and saying, well, what are things that I can learn from this in my own personal life? I am seeing the result of this leveling. Now, we appreciate it. Moderns appreciate it. And we go, man, look, you know, I'm able to read a book by monastics that are talking about how I can apply monastic ideas to my own life. And it's one of the things that I've always had to remind myself when I read books, you know, classics from many, many, many years ago, centuries ago, written by Catholic priests or bishops and the like, even nuns, that most of the time they're written to their brothers or sisters. They're written to fellow priests or those beneath the bishop. And that was the primary audience. It wasn't expected that was going to bleed over. There was a little bit of in-house, behind closed doors with some of that. And in fact, many of them may have written that without expecting or anticipating that those writings would ever one day be in the hands of an everyday Joe, you know, working the grind, you know, at a cubicle, working the grind at a bowling alley, and he's, you know, reading stuff about lay monasticism. I mean, that's, and feeling obliged, in fact, to apply it to his life. And if he doesn't, that he would feel a sense that there is a fast track that is reserved for people who do. This version of reform levels two-tiered religions by actually expecting everyone to live up to the higher expectation of disciplined monastic life. But there's another kind. And the other kind is you could also solve the two-tiered problem by lifting the weight of virtue, right? Disburdening a society of the expectations of transcendence. And thus, you lop off the upper tier. In fact, Taylor goes to suggest that it was the first strategy of higher expectations that might have driven some of the latter strategy of lowered expectations. And I said that's one of the things about, you can see this in the history, the waxing and waning. It'd be nice to have like one of those layers, like to have layers like you have on Photoshop, where you take timelines from enthusiasm and timelines from the history that Taylor's talking about in his book. This is just a summary, right? So Taylor goes into the nitty gritty of all that. And to put them over top of each other, because both of them talk about a waxing and a waning, an ebb and a flow, right? There's a weird distribution of rigor and laxity in the church and in society at large. And I would dare to say that we could make some predictions regarding when rigorous arise and when the bar is dropped societally, right? Which is in fact one of the claims that Knox makes himself. But you could see it historically through the lens of stuff that's not talked about in the book Enthusiasm. He says here, by railing against vice and cranking up the terrifying visions of damnation, Protestant preachers effectively prepared, quote, the desertion of a goodly part of their flock to humanism. So if you lower the bar, or you rail against vice, the bar is set high. Stuff that was formerly reserved for people who dedicated their lives to this, largely, not entirely, but largely, for people who dedicated the entirety of their lives to the project, to then allow that in that porous way to begin to seep out and to saturate the society, and then to ramp up the condemnation of vice that had been there from before, and accompany that with sermons about damnations to hell. You would be fueling a lot of people who would be like, man, holy cow. And in fact, in many ways, that would be like a new gospel being preached. It would feel that way to a lot of people, the day-to-day life of that person. They'd say, look, I've been living life as a Christian for quite a while. My granddaddy was a Christian. We were all Christians. We believed in God. Some might have fought in holy wars. And I believed in that. But now I'm being told that I need to do all that stuff that, Friar Tuck over there is doing. How am I supposed to do all that? And also do this. Is he out there working, is he working the grind over there with the horse and everything, the buggies and stuff? Is he over there shoveling in the fields? Is he doing that? Maybe a little bit, but there's a lot of time that they're spent doing other stuff because that's what they were supposed to do. That was the understanding. That was the division. But it had a radical simplification. I called it the OG simping. They're simping it up. Simplifying. Simplifying it up. Right? They're the OGs on that. But radical simplification, that you say, so many of the enthusiasts did this, where they said, look, this is a complex system. Not only religiously, but even societally. We need to level this. It'd make it a lot easier, equalitarianism. Well, you get the societal expectations of folks like George Fox and his Quaker friends, and the Naked Truth, running through the streets nude and stuff. You get them, and they're like, hey, I'm making it easy for you, and you're like, to get arrested. You're making it easy to get arrested. That's what we're gonna do. One can see how this entails a kind of disenchantment, right? If you reject the sacramentals, for example, and you start to make it so that everything is sacred. If everything is sacred, then in some sense, the things that were formerly viewed to be sacred, what are they, just more sacred now? Like they're sacred squared? Like, what is it? So you start to reject sacramentals and all the elements of magic in the old religion. But if the church no longer has good magic, and they're not using magic in the same sense that a lot of moderns would think, but if you get rid of that, then, quote, then all magic must be black. All enchantment must be blasphemous, idolatrous, even demonic. And once the world is disenchanted and decharged of transcendence, because we talked about the charging of things last episode when talking about sacramentals, when talking about getting your rosary blessed, trying to visualize what that would have meant in a world that was porous with the transcendent and the temporal. He said if you had to draw a picture of it and try to imagine the spiritual reality of that thing, the ontological reality of that thing now, of that person, how would you differentiate? I said, sometimes we use halos, right, to differentiate a saint from a sinner. And I said, moderns, I could imagine saying, if you asked a kid to do it, it might be a glowing rosary in a hand. But the idea simply being that it's charged, There's something different about it. There's something different about the holy water. It's charged. And once it's been decharged of transcendence, we are then free to reorder it as it seems best. And this is a big deal. Reformers' rejection of sacramentalism is the beginning of naturalism, or it at least opens the door to it, right? It's also the beginning of a certain evacuation of the sacred as a presence in this world. That leads to a completely new understanding of social and cultural life as well. Social and political arrangements are no longer enchanted givens. They're just people too. Why do I need to view this person separately? It's why we focus less on the person and more on a chair. And even that's a little bit strange. It's a remnant. It's a fragment of the past for so many people. And that's why even so many people now have trouble even honoring the chair. So if they're no longer enchanted givens, the king or the monarch can't be, there's no sort of sacramental reality to it. In fact, it would make nonsense of certain claims that popes have made regarding the reality of the ministers of the state and the majesty, right? The idea of a king, in fact, being set apart and not just purely as a symbol. If the world is going to be ordered now, we have to do it. That's what would be true. If everything's been leveled, and if everything has been placed on our shoulders equally, there's no unequal distribution of expectation, and it's all been placed on us, and this is all under our control, these are things that we're doing, then this would be simply left to what is best up to us. That's Worms on the brain. That's taking Worms. That's why I say that Luther at Worms, it was Pandora's box. It wasn't just the religious anarchy that would take place. It was a bigger thing than that. I don't think he could fully appreciate the doom and the gloom that would result from this. In charity, I have to suppose he didn't. But there's a spiritual and a societal price tag, right? And I said it would be like ultra enthusiasm, a hyper enthusiasm, in fact, that not only is everything sanctified by grace, everything around you, right? Everything is to some degree almost deified. And now everything is a little bit magic, everything. And so we're now in a charged world where everything is charged, but it won't be long before, if everything is charged, nothing is charged. If everything is charged equally, then nothing's. What stands apart? What would be better than the rest? And if that includes you, and if the standard that you live by is you, your Bible, your interpretation, your conscience, if it all comes down to you, you're talking the beginning of a buffered self. And if that's true, then it's your idea as to how society ought to be reformed versus another person's. But then it's going to come to, on what authority are you coming against me? And it didn't take long for that to happen, did it? Because Anabaptists, when they showed up to anywhere where the magisterial reformers were, right, some of the high-profiler reformers, those folks were dead on arrival, son. Them folk were dead on arrival. You roll into town and say, I'm an Anabaptist. And they're like, off with his head. Put him to say, he's like, oh, crud. I didn't know that was going to happen. And he's like, you were part of that naked running group, weren't you? No, that was George Fox. I'm sorry, my bad. But the idea being that if it's the buffered self of you and your interpretation, your conscience, and your understanding, and the Holy Ghost working with you in this world where you're making all these things sacred and doing as you believe that you are led for that, and you're recognizing that it can go crazy if anybody defies that order, then you now have the societal makings for something that after not very long will end up becoming secular. Yeah. Sorry about that. But this created a rage for order. Because otherwise it's complete anarchy. Because you have order, then you have a great leveling. You have the experiment of equalitarianism begins. Now, you'll have hangovers. There will still be people, like, as I said, Luther was one of them. Luther realizing what he had done to some extent and saying, look, these folks now, they're their own, they think they're their own bosses and stuff. Well, he couldn't have that. I mean, he was enough of a boomer to realize that was a bad call. So he's like, well, look, I got to come up with a catechism. I got to come up with a Bible of my own. So I got to do this thing. And people better submit. People better submit. In fact, I'm going to put in there that even the angels, even those angels, they wouldn't dare defy my catechism. Now nobody really believes that. Like, how many people are rolling around and they're like, you got to believe this particular catechism because even the angels wouldn't deny that. Who does that anymore? But that was out of a necessity because why? Because as every single equalitarian group in the history of the world has shown, that inevitably there will be a drive, naturally ascendant class of people that people will rally around, and that these groups, these charismatic figures, will eventually create institutions. And you're back to just another kind of order because people can't stand being without order. It's part of their it's part of their makeup. But the rage for order, right, unwittingly contributed to the disenchantment of the world. This, plus the inherent drive of the religious formations, made them work towards the disenchantment of the world and the abolition of society based on a hierarchical equilibrium, whether that of the elite and mass, or that we find reflected in the carnival and the world turned upside down. It's religious reform that calls for secular reform, which in turn makes possible exclusively humanist reform. The Reformation has some explaining to do. You can see when I wrote that, by the way. Vatican II, Pope St. John the 23rd. You can see I wasn't even back yet. I was an atheist when I wrote that. I kept it in there. Because I sat there and said, we complain, don't we, of the reforms, of the reforms, of the reforms, of the reforms? Don't we complain about that? Taylor's case in point is a shift to a new interest in nature. Take this as an example of what he's saying. So sometimes it's difficult when we're talking about this for people to conceptualize. And I think an example of how this can at times be difficult is similar to when I talk to people about the idea that the medium is the message. They say, well, that sounds kind of funky. What does that even mean? You talking to spooky ectoplasm people? What are you talking about? The medium is the message, What kind of weird stuff are you going to? And I'm like, no. We're talking about Marshall McLuhan. And we're talking about what happens when a new technology is introduced into a society. And you say that new technology, people get, we are attracted to it, maybe even repulsed to it, but either which way, it's attracting a crowd, right? And so it doesn't matter if it's beauty or skin and tragedy. Either way, you're attracting a crowd, right? That's David Bazan stuff. And so the idea being that once that has been integrated and you begin using that technology, and let's take, for example, his favorite one is a light bulb. Because a light bulb doesn't have a message per se, right? It's a medium. It's a medium of light. It's transmitting light. And we say, well, look at the benefits of that. We go, look at all the things that it can do, and we still do to this day. I'm surrounded right now. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lights, not including, I have 6 lights in my room right now. I mean, this place is lit up like Christmas. And it's true, it really is. And the thing is that even my computer screen, all these little lights all over the place, right? Allowing this thing to radiate light. And you say, okay, I have a flash on my Canon. I have a flash right up there. Okay, so I have multiple lights. I got a light on my phone. It's all over the place. And he says that what happens is that medium, the light bulb, as an example, all of the things that we can benefit from that are like, if we have a watchdog of the mind, right? So imagine your brain has a watchdog, and you're like normally on the lookout for things that could really ravage you and ravage your family and ravage your society and everything else. And you're on the lookout for it. You're like, you're like those gelato baboons staring around at the top of the hill looking over their harem, making sure there's no guys coming up, right? Looking like the Bee Gees and stuff, strutting their stuff. Staying alive, that kind of thing, trying to find themselves a lady. So you're up there doing this thing, right? All stoic and such, all Machiavellian. And so that's normally where you'd be. But a new technology comes in, and all of a sudden, your brain is distracted. So the watchdog is distracted by what McLuhan says would be the bloody meat from the burglar. The burglar, in this case, would be the light bulb. The bloody meat is all of those things that it enables us to do. We say, man, I don't have to have that, I don't have to have my son stand in front of my wagon anymore with a lantern. I can just have a light plugged in. I don't have to go through candles all the time and burn the house down. I burn, how many cabins did I burn down? Because I fell asleep or whatever. And the next thing I know, the place is on fire. I don't have to worry about that anymore. I can see where I'm going at night. I can walk through a forest and I'm not afraid of every single sound. And if I am afraid, I can turn around and look. We can find all these excuses. That is the watchdog of the mind lapping up the bloody meat that the burglar gave. Because over time, it reaches a place where we're not just talking about the guy in front of the car. I'm talking about all the lights in my office. I'm talking about the lights that keep people up when they're laying in bed and they're complaining because they never get any sleep and they're looking at their phones all night long. I'm talking about the kind of light that allows Netflix to an inside memo revealed that a conversation took place where they had a meeting and the question came up, who is the biggest competition for Netflix? And what was the answer? What do you think it was? What was the biggest competition? Sleep. Sleep. And why would that matter? I mean, obviously sleep is a competitor for a lot of people, You're not buying food because you're sleeping, kind of thing. Why was it important for Netflix? Because they were winning. And by the time we realize it, and we're seeing it now, look at how it spread. Electronic devices. Look at how it spread. And we think, oh man, now I can use GPS, now I can use that. We can go on anything. Look at social media. Oh man, Facebook, I can connect with my friends now. And then we start seeing how it's ravaging everything. The propaganda and the censorship. The deplatforming and depersoning that goes on. The chilling effect that always goes on over there. Self-censoring all the time because we're afraid maybe the panopticon has its eye on us. But by the time we get to that place, it's too late. Because the medium, the burglar, when we were distracted by the meat of all we could do, the burglar had spread and become so ingrained in it that if we tried to detach ourselves from it, it felt like we were amputating something off of us because it becomes part of us. That's what's happening here. This is like a new technology. This is like it's a new medium that's been brought in. And by the time people figured it out, too late. Too late. What are you going to do? Which is why there's positions of escapism. We got to run and hide for the hills. We got to form a little commune out in the middle of the wilderness somewhere. We got to pray that the rapture is going to happen. It's why doom and gloom is so big. It's why movies and shows that are about zombie apocalypse and stuff, why those are so big. So I'll just talk about the part about nature and we'll call it. Right? I'm sorry we didn't talk so much today. Maybe I'll do an extra episode this week about the remaining chapters. I'll do it on my own channel at Paleocrat. Or maybe I'll talk to Michael Lofton and see if we'll do another one, but I'll start off right away. We won't do introductory stuff, nothing like that. I'm grateful that you allowed me so much time to just talk to you. He says, take nature for its own sake. From the vantage point of secular humanism, this new interest in nature can look like a next logical step on the way to pure eminence. First, distinguish God and nature, then disenchant, then be happy and content with just nature, and hence affirm the autonomy and sufficiency of nature. That sounds like a jolly good story, doesn't it? The only problem is it's totally fake. And so when you hear secular people say that, you know you're dealing with big time fake news. You're dealing with lemon drop and lollipop nonsense. That's what you're dealing with. 2 hearty scoops of poop magoo. The only problem with such a story is that it fails to account for 2 important historical realities. One, and sometimes people will say this, because we intuitively understand this, we've experienced it, it's in our bones at this point. It was precisely Christians who were exhibiting a new interest in creation and nature, and they were doing it for theological reasons. And 2, this interest was clearly not mutually exclusive with belief in God and an affirmation of transcendence. But you have a new incarnational spirituality. Right? So it's not altogether surprising that this attempt to bring Christ to the world, the lay world, the previously unhallowed world, should inspire a new focus on the world. That's like Knox talking about the Jesuits and saying it's unsurprising that when all of a sudden people are learning more about psychology and what makes humans tick and biology, what are we, what are animals and such, that when we begin looking at all of that, it's unsurprising that you would have theologians begin looking more introspectively about how the human mind works and having a greater emphasis on man, in fact, a kind of humanism, a humanism that makes things more eminent and more buffered. It was a good thing. Look at the advancements that people made. Look at some of the things, the spiritualities that came out of it, some of the orders, in fact, that came out of those times. And we can still see now, we can see that insofar as they've remained, right, true to the idea of looking at it, like looking at the natural order, that the more people that begin looking at it and having a sole emphasis on that, that over time, as it went, it became more secular. The same thing, let's say, for example, with the Jesuits. People say, well, what went wrong with the Jesuits? Read Secular Age. Read Enthusiasm. Read them in tandem. This was primarily a revolution in devotion, not metaphysics. It was a religious outlook. It was a mutation within this outlook that could have gone otherwise. He gives an example of nominalism. I won't even go through that, but it's basically the same thing. Saying, in trying to preserve God's absolute sovereignty, one would have to do away with essences, with independent natures. And the result is a metaphysical picture called nominalism, where things are only what they are named. Understanding something is no longer a matter of understanding its essence, and hence its telos, or end. Instead, we get the mechanistic universe that we still inhabit today, in which efficient causality, right, a cause that pushes, is the only causality and can only be discerned by empirical observation. And the results of this, nothing short of a new understanding of being, according to which all intrinsic purposes have been expelled, final causation drops out, and efficient causation alone remains. Again, we're talking about something that is the absolute opposite of what it was originally intended. That wasn't the intention. The intention was something of piety. The intention was to preserve sovereignty. But he says there's this sort of intellectual chemical reaction between different things that generates a byproduct that neither on its own would have generated. It could have been otherwise. We have to be careful. Reactions to reactions are rough. That's why I criticized earlier. I criticized the people who all they do are reaction videos talking about the problems in the church. And in fact, they're exacerbating the problem. They're not part of a solution. It's why I won't do that here. Taylor sees a kind of parallel. Autonomization of nature in the realm of ethics and politics. The goal of civility. We talked about it earlier, but I'll let him explain. A concern to manage our passions in social life. Civility becomes a sort of naturalized, secularized sanctification. Totally true. Totally true. And and don't you feel it sometimes when you say, you know, that there's a sense that what they're doing is religious. When they're telling us, you know, that you ought to behave this way. And they're using parables a lot of times, like PSAs, for example. PSAs and commercials, they're parables. And they're using those things, those messages, stuff to do with the, you know, cover your face. I don't understand you thing, right? That thing. The ooh thing, that. The kind of messaging that goes with that, you're talking serious parables. There's a mix of, you know, you're doing it for everybody else. We're in this together. Remember that? We're in this together. Remember the heroes? The frontline heroes? Remember that is a saintly class? And look at how fast the saintly class can be thrown down. Secular age has no standards for this. Right? And that's one of the reasons why I don't like the take in this. It's kind of a fatalistic conceit a little bit. It's like, you know, that this is the way it plays out. It's a little bit of a Hegelian dialectic. It's the way history is working. And I've seen people who've read this book. I have a buddy who's read the book. Not a buddy. I am an acquaintance, right? And we've talked about it. And he's the kind of guy who said, look, if you take certain propositions that this reform has this counter reform, which has this synthesis, which has his own kind of reform, and you go back and forth and back and forth, I said, we could eventually imagine a Christianity where Jesus isn't even part of it. And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, no. And part of the reason is that, remember I said earlier on that James Smith says that you'll never be able to eradicate this. This will always be with us as a reasonable option, right? It'll be something that people can say that they've lived and experienced. And this is where I say it's wrong, that's actually a facade. It's kind of like people saying that they can live and experience Protestantism. I mean, there is a functionality to that. I mean, people can believe in the most nonsensical things that have ever existed. I mean, you look and you see that people in tribes where they have the most quacky beliefs on the planet, that those people can live to 80 years old. It's remarkable. In fact, it's remarkable how God made it so that people with even really terrible ideas could still function and thrive. That doesn't say anything about the system. It doesn't. Because you see what happens in a system that is affected by, and to a degree sanctified by, but then secularized, sanctified by the church, sanctified by otherwise righteous reforms, but then ends up abandoning it, apostatizing, right? They're out of there. They're now secular. And what ends up happening? It's a death spiral. It's a cesspool. It's a clown world. And they can try and say, well, we just need to tinker here, we just need to tinker there. Eventually, people are going to look at them, and they're going to be the weirdos that have to have like 20 arms, and they're hoping the technology will make it happen. You know, they'll download their brain and have, you know, Doc Octopus tentacles and such, and they're going to be, hold on, grab the levers, guys, grab the levers, more control, and people are going to go, man, dude, stay away from those folks. Stay away from those people. And he says right here, okay, that civility requires working on yourself, right? Kind of like the porous monasticism, right? That's made its way and saturated the people. You have to work on yourself, not just leaving things as they are. You have a mandate. You can see the remnants, right? The fragments of the past, but making them over. You got to Christianize them, sanctify them, baptize them. It involves a struggle to reshape ourselves. It requires discipline. And there's a sense that you're doing it for the common good. I mean, look at how religious that is. Because that's how it started. And they think that they can keep playing that game without religion at the core. And that's where it's like people saying that they want to celebrate Christmas with their kids and they want to deny Jesus. And eventually those kids are going to start saying, it was really weird that my mom did that. I think she was just really nostalgic and stuff. Give me that Festivus, Paul. I think I just want to replace it. Not that Festivus is a fun thing to do on the side, but no, Festivus is what the season is really about. Give me that Festivus, Paul. Forget the manger. That's just nonsense, Mary. That's mythology and fairy tale nonsense. It ain't gonna last. They're flying on fumes, and that's what's happening here. It's in fact, it's part of a curse. In fact, it's what happens when you decide you want to benefit, right? You want to smack God in the face and not recognize the only way you were able to do that is if you put you on his knee. Also, is how we got the statecraft. It's how we got the police state, in fact, to manage that, to monitor that. I'll only go a couple more minutes. I'm sorry I got my longer. But this also led to a place where you were able to make your own decisions. You had your buffered self. You had your ability to communicate with God. You had your ability to read the scripture. You had your ability to understand it. You didn't need any mediating forces. You didn't need any pillar and foundation of truth. You're the one with the keys. You're the one with the keys, right? The faith inside of you is no less than the faith inside of Luther. It's no less than the faith inside of Calvin. So what, they're smarty pants? Who cares? Maybe they didn't have as direct connect as you did. You have the Holy Ghost on the 1-800 number. You have them on speed dial. They're not even 1-800 anymore. You're on speed dial. You're like, Holy Ghost, I need a confirmation real quick. I have to make a big decision, and I want to know, is this the right one? And they go down and make the quick call, and next thing you know, they're like, nope, this is what the Lord told me. You're like, I don't know about that. It's like the people that used to, I forget what that cult was. It wasn't Family of Love, I don't think. The Family or something like that. Where they would had a harem, essentially, of a bunch of hot chicks and stuff, and they'd go around town and seduce men to bring them in because that's, the Lord. They're doing anything they need to do. It's the Lord telling the Quakers to run naked in the street. It's the Lord telling the mouth breathers to huff and puff in each other's mouths before getting killed by a bunch of, soldiers and stuff. And so you have that, but if that's true, and everything has become kind of sacred, what is the point of a building in a church? And people, and most Protestant people would like to have a moderate influence on that and say, well, the church is the people, but we still have a church. There's another hangover again, right? Another hangover like belief in the Trinity and the canon of the New Testament and such. Right? Anything to do with Nicaea, anything to do with any of the councils, anything to do with any of the developments that took place before they left. Right? That they said, oh yeah, we agree with this. But the idea that you can go to church of your own choice. Now, he says right here, perhaps it's no accident that it is Taylor, the Roman Catholic, who sees in these developments a relegation of worship as ultimately unnecessary and irrelevant. He's just taking the conclusions to his logical end. And this rankles a little bit, I think. I think it rankles Smith a little bit. Because he's not a Roman Catholic. He says, we'll encounter these themes again. So what made all this possible? We're going to wrap it up. What made it possible? How did we get here? It turns out that this was made possible by theological shifts associated with movements of reform. Once we learned to distinguish transcendent from immanent, quote, it eventually became possible to see the immediate surrounding of our lives as existing on this natural plane, however much we might believe that they indicate something beyond. So it became possible to see it. That our lives exist alone here on this natural plane. An irony of this is the naturalization that is essential to exclusive humanism was first motivated by Christian devotion. The irony is that just this, so much as the fruit of devotion and faith, prepares the ground for an escape from faith into a purely immanent world. And this is where we have to be aware and familiar with blowback, that sometimes our otherwise good intentions and even otherwise good ideas, we have to anticipate that there will be blowback. There will be some kind of cost. Everything comes with a cost. And so something might sound really good, and we want it done right now. And we're not really forward thinking. And the only way to become better at forward thinking is to become better at thinking backward. Looking back in time and seeing the mistakes that were made And ask ourselves, when certain mistakes were made in the past and you see how this development takes place, you say sometimes it wasn't mistakes, sometimes these were broadening a sense of devotion, meaning and place. We see this with a lot of people who attend the ordinary form exclusively. They said they wanted to be more interactive with the liturgy. I think that that's a misunderstanding of what activity is. I'm very active. I'm very active with the liturgy in a low mass. Methods of hearing mass, you can't do a method of hearing mass and tell me that you are not actively engaged with the prayer of the mass. You can't do it. Impossible. But these have an impact on how we imagine ourselves, how we imagine we. The buffered individual becomes sedimented in a social imaginary, not just part of some social theory. What emerges then is a new self-understanding of our existence, one which gives an unprecedented primacy to the individual. And these are the things that we take for granted, which is why one of the strengths as to why I believe that we need to begin looking past premise to conclusion or counter argument or counter apologetic, and we need to go back to those things that they take for granted. Because they're ripped off. Those things are ripped off. They have no right to them. And we need to show them that in charity, but we can't play footsies with it either. All right, we're gonna go to the comments and we're done. And again, I'm sorry I went over. I'm already at 2 hours and 17 minutes. Holy cow. Holy cow, guys. Oh no, man, my controller is not doing good right now either, my mouse. Sorry for all those issues there. Alrighty. So I'm gonna scroll up. I said if people wanted to mention me, I feel badly if I don't mention you, and you mention me, I'll try to spot it. If I don't spot it, I'm really sorry. I mentioned earlier, I should have it on the screen, that if you'd like me to talk about something in particular, to go ahead and put my name on there. Otherwise, I'll just assume you're talking to people in the chat. No, someone said MacArthur supports infant baptism. No, it was a hypothetical that was there to prove my case in point as to why the idea that, Protestants have one faith and that, that they're able to unite on fundamentals and stuff like that is a joke. And so I used that as an example, talking about a hypothetical with MacArthur and Sproul, rest in peace, going up to a mountain or into a cave and studying original documents and praying and fasting for the remainder of their lives. And before they die at the end of their lives, they pray, they give everything to God. They do it for years and years and years. They're not looking at any other topic, and they come out and they make a press announcement. And in the hypothetical, I could have said that R.C. Sproul believed in believer baptism, that he came out. The idea is that somebody had to give. Somebody in my story was that somebody gave, and these two powerhouses that people look up to, they cared about each other. They were otherwise pious people, right? So and they went and they did their duty there as Protestant ministers, and they come out and they let the world know that they came to the conclusion. They followed the direction of the Lord. They gave everything to him, holding nothing back. And after all those years, their final words before they die is that they wanted to let the world know that, you know what, R.C. Sproul and the Catholic Church, those folks were right all along. Baptism's dope. It's legit. It's true. And every Baptist on the planet's like, what they do? I don't care. Who are you? And I said, that just, it shows the facade of unity, the facade of fundamentals. And I chose baptism on purpose because they can't even get one Lord, one faith, one baptism right. So they're really struggling. Let's see. Okay, I don't know who Minicus. Who in the world's Minicus? No, message deleted. Okay. I have no idea what was going on with that cat. Apparently he was doing something, a bunch of crazy ad hominem attacks. Was it against your boy? Was he going against the Kaiser? Is that what was going on? You don't want to mess, bro. You don't want to mess, champ. You want to come at me, dude? Then go to the Wolfpack Gym. Now, if you're, it depends on what you are. I'm not inviting you there. Right? We take stuff kind of serious there. We like being a happy little group of glad cats over there. All right, let's see. All right. Okay, Paleocrat. Okay, yeah, I did that, man. I made the mention. I'll say it one more time. Mikey Joe's the one who created the sticker. That's a sticker on Telegram that people can use. It's hilarious. It's kind of like, if you want to use a picture or meme or GIF to reply to people and stuff, or to accentuate your post and all that. Stickers are one of those things that people have a really good time with. They have ones of me like shaking my fist that if they imagine, because they're always trolling me on there. People are allowed to just mock, and we have a good time. And I'm always fighting back against all of them, right? Because I'm the Kaiser. They're all throwing stones at the throne. Is what's happening. And so I got stickers where I'm like, "Rah!" and all mad in their face and such, or telling them to kiss the ring and all that. And so it's a lot of fun. But he made the crying Luther for today's episode. So very, very, very grateful about that. Let's see. Blaming the Reformation without mentioning that. I don't know what this guy's talking about. Oh, he's arguing Xander. I'm not even going to get involved in that. You guys can have fun with that. I'm not going to even get involved, boys and girls. And I said I wasn't even going to get involved unless people put my name out there. I'm just going to assume that they want to talk to each other. That's good. I'm down with that, by the way. I got to go, dear Paleocrat friends. You all take care and have a great Advent. Same with you, Andrea. Yeah, same with you. The thought just occurred to me, this Taylor is definitely not the same as Dr. Taylor Marshall, right? Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah. No, it's not. This is Charles Taylor. Yeah. Yeah. Look, I'd read Taylor Marshall's book. I wouldn't buy it. I mean, if he wants me to read it, or someone says, look, I'd like your opinion on it. Here's my old copy of it. Make sure it's highlighted up and underlined with notes in the margins. I enjoy reading that from other people. That's always a good time. But I'd read his stuff. I can't follow him because he banned me on Twitter. I've already said that was partially my fault, though. Imagine this. Your boy was trolling a little Eatzes. I was trolling a little bit. I don't normally do that sort of thing. but I did. I did it hard, man. I did it hard. All right. Let's see here. Let's see. Jeremiah is a journalist. And somebody asked, Francesco said, this is pretty high-level material. What's his profession? I'm a journalist. Yes. But you should check out his conversion story. I went to school. I used to be a pastor. And this is just a quick summary. Used to be a pastor. I ended up converting. I was doing apologetics articles and blogs online, and I was debating Catholic people. And after about a year and a half, I made the decision that I was going to take that old road to Rome, and did that on the feast day of St. Francis de Sales, who just so happens to be the patron of ya boy as a journalist. And he was a major player. In fact, it was his book, The Defense of the Faith. It was Catholic Controversies that was so instrumental at the end. Other books too, like Glories of Mary by St. Alphonsus, stuff like that. But ultimately it was that book. That was the final straw. I couldn't be a pastor anymore. I'd gone to Bible college. I'd been to a Bible college in Dallas, Texas, one in Vancouver, Canada. And then for a short period of time, I went to Bonson Theological Seminary, where I was studying presuppositional apologetics. I still have all of the cassette tapes from that. I'm glad I still have those. I just need a talk boy to still listen. I need a talk boy, not just a cassette player. I need a talk boy. I was watching Home Alone. I got to have one of those again. I used to have one. And so, to go ahead and listen to those. But I was a fanatic for books during that time. So, I excelled in different ways. And then when I became a Protestant, I had to do something different because I had a bunch of kids. So I went back to school for journalism and mass communication. And I was awarded The school's top honor in 3 different disciplines. In fact, 3 different departments, not even my own. They had an issue because apparently I was a little controversial. They're like, oh, this guy, oh no, we can't talk about him. He's on radio saying some crazy stuff. And so, but no, public speaking, creative writing for my poetry, prose, and speculative fiction, public speaking, and political science, which was my minor. So I talked about that, but most of my life has been involved studying theology, apologetics, journalism, and political science. And that most of my work on radio, TV, and YouTube and podcasting, that's been what it's about. Okay. Let's see. Have you seen the work of Jonathan Pajot? You know, people, yes. I don't know about, is it Verbeek? I don't know how you pronounce that. Forgive me. But Pajot, people always ask me that all the time, man. I would love to speak to that guy. I think we'd get along really well, actually. I think that we have a lot of things in common in our frustration, even with people and kind of conspiratorial people with their symbolism stuff. I think that we find ourselves on familiar footing with that. So I really hope one day to actually be able to speak to him. So, all righty. Yeah, and Protect the Kaiser, yes. Francesco, we need you over at the Wolfpack chat. Somebody throw up real quick before I go. Somebody's got to go ahead and, is there any conflict between King Kyle and the Kaiser? Who's King Kyle? I don't know. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, King Kyle. I don't know who King Kyle is. Yeah. And there's no King Kyle over the Wolfpack. It's just your boy. It's just your boy over there. So I'm the boss man. I'm the boss. But I'm also the boss that says there ain't no leaders, right? I genuinely just want to become friends with people. I'm a brother in this fight. I'm somebody who says, look, I've got certain gifts and talents. You've got certain gifts and talents. Let's reach out together arm in arm because the savages are in the gates now and they're coming at us. And if we disagree, they don't like the crucifix or the cross that we've got or any of this. And they kind of want you dead as much as me. So I think it'd be wise if we came together and put together some plans and we can begin by getting on our knees together and crying out to God and becoming better at that. And so that's the core, man. And so I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the show. But all right, we're done. We're done. Bye. No, I'm kidding. we have a closer. You have to have a closer. Okay? I'm grateful. I'm grateful for each and every one of you. I'm grateful that you're part of my life. You know, we all go through crazy times, don't we? We're going through it together right now. Different experiences, different places. Different thoughts, dreams, emotions, all that. But we're in it together. God put you here. God put me here. All right? And he put us here for a reason. And I'm just really grateful that our hearts have crossed paths. I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful that you show up in here. I'm grateful that you go to Paleocratdiaries.com. I'm grateful that you go to Patreon.com/Paleocrat Diaries. And I'm extraordinarily grateful that you go to the Wolfpack chat. Okay, one word, the Wolfpack chat on Telegram. It's free. It's awesome. It's a Catholic stream of conscience that just never stops. Consciousness that never stops. It never sleeps. It's always rocking. It's always rolling. And people are praying for each other. They're laughing and having a good time. They're sharing devotions. They're sharing stories. And they're there for each other. We prayed through Taylor's baby. And by the way, congratulations. I think it's first baby of a member of the Wolfpack. First one. We prayed her through, guys. We prayed her through. We're so grateful. And again, make sure to pray Andrew Stahl's stepdad. Pray for him. He's got COVID. Took a turn for the worse. So make sure, keep him in your thoughts, keep him in your prayers, and meet us there. Meet us halfway. Because we're really sincere when we say that we're giving our best and that we'd love to be there with you. So until next time, never give up, keep on smiling, and memento mori.
I wanted to make people dream bigger thoughts.